A Navy SEAL receives a call from the hospital. A woman begs the soldier and his German shepherd to come because her child is about to die. The man and the dog immediately rush to the hospital, where they discover that. My name is Owen Rohr. Years have passed since I shed the SEAL trident, but habits never fade. I still wake before dawn. I still observe every exit and entrance when I walk into a room, and I still hate bullies. Currently, I train therapy dogs. It sounds gentle, but the work requires iron discipline. Kaiser is my partner. He's a German shepherd. He served in the military, smelled explosives and fear. Now, he's a little older, but his amber eyes are still razor sharp. My phone vibrated on a Tuesday afternoon. The voice on the other end was trembling, fractured. It was Tessa Whitaker. "Owen," she said, sobs breaking her words. "They say Ian is leaving us. Dr. Marshall says there's nothing more they can do." I gripped the phone tight. Ian was a 6-month-old baby in the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit, NICU, at St. Michael's Hospital. Kaiser and I had visited him before, amidst the tangle of wires and the steady whoosh of the ventilator. Ian always smiled when he saw Kaiser. Their connection was special. "What can I do, Tessa?" I asked, my voice calm. "Bring Kaiser. Please. Just one last time. He needs to see his friend." She pleaded. "I'll be right there." I drove to the hospital, Kaiser sitting rigid in the back seat. We met Tessa in the concrete garden behind the main building. She looked drained, dark circles under her eyes, shoulders slumped as if carrying the weight of the world. But what struck me wasn't the sadness. It was the suppressed anger. "She refused," Tessa said, crumpling a tissue in her hand. "Dr. Keene, the CEO, the reason." I asked curtly. "A fundraising event." Tessa gave a bitter laugh. She said they need to maintain absolute sterility for the donors. From the Langley Foundation. She called Kaiser an infection risk. "She's more concerned about clean carpets than my son's last breath." My jaw tightened. I knew this type of person. In the military, we called them desk officers, those who cared more about medals than the lives of their troops. She was placing money and reputation above a child's life. That was a target I couldn't ignore. "We need an alternative approach," I stated. A young woman emerged from the side door. She wore pale blue nurse scrubs, her name tag read Hollis Vega. She looked around nervously, her expression alert. "I heard everything," Hollis whispered as she approached us. "What Dr. Keene is doing is cruel. I want to help." I studied her. Upright posture, steady gaze. This girl was trustworthy. "The risk is high," I cautioned. "You could lose your job." "Ian's life is more important than this badge," Hollis replied, her voice firm. I nodded. Time to establish an operation. I motioned them closer to the stone table. "All right, listen carefully." I shifted into command mode. My voice was low, decisive. "This is not a social visit. This is an infiltration mission. Objective: bring Kaiser to target Ian for therapeutic support. Requirements: get in fast, get out clean, leave no trace." I pulled out my phone, opening the satellite map of the hospital area. "Hollis, I need intel. Which way has the fewest cameras?" Hollis pointed to a corner of the building on the screen. "The east service entrance. It leads directly to the freight elevator. After 8 p.m., that area is deserted. Security shift change is at 8:15. "Good," I noted. "That'll be the insertion point. Tessa, you need to be in the room with Ian. Ensure the blinds are half closed to block the hallway view, but enough for us to observe." "Understood," Tessa nodded, hope beginning to flicker in her eyes. "I'll adjust the night nurse's round schedule," Hollis added. "I'll ensure the fourth-floor hallway is clear for about 10 minutes. That's our window." I turned to Kaiser. The dog looked up at me, ears pricked, awaiting orders. Kaiser is trained for silent movement. "We won't make a sound," I confirmed. "H hour is 20:30 tomorrow night. Kaiser and I will approach the service door. Hollis, you open it from the inside. Tessa, keep Ian awake." I looked directly into the eyes of the two women. Dr. Keene thinks she's in control. But she forgot one thing. We don't fight for money. We fight for our comrades. And we never leave anyone behind. Tessa squeezed my hand. "Thank you, Owen." Don't thank me yet. I stood up, adjusting my jacket. Prepare yourselves. Tomorrow night, we move. Kaiser and I left. The afternoon sky was gray. This mission didn't involve bullets, but the tension was no less than when I raided enemy hideouts. The enemy this time was apathy and bureaucracy. And I, Owen Rohr, former SEAL, have never accepted failure. I went home, checking my gear. Tactical short leash. Soft-soled boots for silent movement. I brushed Kaiser's coat, whispering the plan to him. He understood. He always did. Tomorrow, we would infiltrate Dr. Keen's fortress. The goal wasn't destruction, but to provide spiritual rescue for a tiny warrior fighting his last battle. Part 2. Warning and fire. The clock struck 20:30. H-hour. Kaiser and I stood before the east service door. The cold steel door cracked open exactly as planned. Hollis had done her part well. I gave Kaiser the hand signal. Silent. Stay close. The dog pressed against my left leg, moving lightly as a shadow. We stepped into the dark hallway. The air inside smelled strongly of disinfectant, and the floor was highly polished. This was enemy territory. Anyone seeing us now could ruin the mission. I scanned the blind spots. The security camera in the corner of the ceiling was pointed elsewhere. Hollis had calculated well. We moved quickly. Kaiser's paws made a soft, clicking sound on the floor, almost inaudible. My heart beat slow and steady. This was my combat state. Calm, focused, ready. We reached the freight elevator. I pressed the button. The door opened. With a small groan of old metal, we stepped inside. Floor 4. The number lit up on the display. 1, 2, 3, 4. The door opened. Hollis was waiting at the corner of the corridor. She nodded, her face tense, but her eyes resolute. She led us past the deserted nurses' station, weaving through drug carts and medical equipment. The last room down the hall, Hollis whispered. Tessa is waiting. We arrived in front of Ian's room. I opened the door, stepping into a temporary safe zone. The NICU room was bathed in dim light from the monitoring equipment. The steady beep of the heart monitor was the only sound. Tessa sat by the crib, tightly holding her son's tiny hand. When she saw us, her shoulders sagged, as if a 1,000-pound rock had been lifted. You're here, she said, her voice breaking. Thank God. I didn't answer, just nodded and signaled to Kaiser. Do your job, old friend. Kaiser approached the clear crib. Ian lay there, heartbreakingly small, amidst a forest of wires. His skin was pale. His chest rose and fell weakly. Kaiser rested his muzzle on the side of the crib, letting out a soft whimper. His tail gave a gentle wag. This was the Kaiser I knew, a gentle warrior, bringing peace to wounded souls. Tessa smiled through her tears, reaching out to stroke Kaiser's head. But then, the atmosphere changed. I felt it instantly. The fur on Kaiser's hackles stood up, his muscles tense beneath his thick coat. His ears swiveled backward, then stood straight up. Kaiser stopped wagging his tail. He took a step back, his eyes glued to an indeterminate spot in the room. Kaiser, I called softly. What is it? He didn't look at me. He started sniffing. Strong, rapid intakes of breath. This wasn't how he sniffed a child. This was how he sniffed explosives in Afghanistan. Kaiser moved to a metal cart in the corner of the room. It was stacked high with boxes of formula bearing the Langley Foundation logo. He growled, a low, dull sound from deep in his throat. He scratched his claws on the floor, letting out a short, sharp bark at the pile of formula boxes. Owen, Tessa asked. Her voice panicked. What's wrong with him? He's never been aggressive like that. I stepped closer, placing a hand on Kaiser's back to reassure him, but my eyes closely observed his actions. He's not aggressive. He's warning us. Kaiser ignored the cart, turning sharply toward the opposite wall. There was a large electrical panel with a maze of wires connected to Ian's life support. Machines. Kaiser lunged toward it. He barked louder, the sound echoing in the small room. He jumped up, clawing at the wall, then turned back to look at me, his eyes urgent. He's giving a double. Alert, I said, my brain rapidly analyzing the situation. The formula cart and the electrical panel. Something is wrong in both locations. Very wrong. What do you mean wrong? Hollis asked. her hands shaking as she checked the computer screen. Kaiser is trained to detect biological and thermal hazards. I quickly explained. He smells something toxic in that formula, and he senses abnormal heat from that wall. The room door burst open. Hallway light flooded in. Dr. Mallory Keene stood there. She wore an expensive suit, her hair in a perfect bun, but her face was twisted with fury. "What in God's name is going on here?" she hissed. "A dog? In my sterile unit." Tessa jumped up, shielding her son. "Dr. Keene, please." "Silence!" Dr. Keene roared. She stepped into the room, pointing a finger at me. "You and this beast. Get out immediately. I'm calling security. I'll sue you for trespassing." She turned to Hollis. "And you, Nurse Vega, you are suspended. Pack your things and get out of my hospital right now." Kaiser barked more intensely, drowning out her shouting. He didn't care about position or power. He only cared about the imminent danger. I stepped up, standing between Dr. Keene and Kaiser. I used my command voice, loud enough but full of, "Wait. Dr. Keene, listen to me. This dog isn't barking because he hates you. He's warning you. There's a fire risk from that electrical panel, and there's a problem with that batch of formula. We need to check them now." "Nonsense." Keene sneered, her smile cold and cruel. "Fire risk? This is an internationally accredited hospital. Our system is maintained weekly. You're just a washed-up soldier trying to excuse his illegal behavior." She pulled out her phone. "Security. 4th floor. Immediately. You can ignore me." I growled, looking her straight in the eye. "But you can't ignore my teammate's warning. If you're wrong, you'll kill every child on this floor." "I'm not wrong. I am a doctor. And you are." She didn't finish her sentence. Pop! A sharp, dry explosion came from the wall. All of us flinched. The ceiling lights flickered. The numbers on Ian's heart monitor jumped wildly. Then, the acrid smell hit us. The smell of burning plastic, melting wires, the distinct scent of disaster. "What?" Dr. Keene stammered, lowering her phone. She stared blankly at the electrical panel. A thin stream of black smoke began to leak from the gap in the electrical outlet. Kaiser backed up, barking continuously to signal the dangerous spot. "Fire!" I yelled. A spark shot out from the panel, landing on the floor and catching the curtain. The flame flared up quickly. The room was full of medical oxygen. This was the worst nightmare. Fire plus oxygen equals a bomb. Dr. Keene stood frozen. Her mouth hung open, her face ashen. She was paralyzed. A typical civilian reaction when faced with death. But I was not a civilian. "Initiate egress protocol." I ordered. My voice boomed, cutting through the alarm that was now beginning to blare. "Hollis, shut off the oxygen. Switch to portable tanks. Move Ian now." Hollis snapped to attention. She worked with the speed of a professional. Her hands deftly disconnected the tubes, attaching a small oxygen tank to the mobile incubator. "Tessa." I turned to the panicked mother. "Don't stand there. Get your phone out. Record everything. Record her." I pointed at the statue-like Dr. Keene. "Record the panel. Record the formula. We need evidence if we're going to survive this." Tessa shakily pulled out her phone, turning on the camera. She was crying and filming, but she didn't break down. "Go, go, go," I urged. Smoke was thickening at the ceiling. Visibility dropped. I rushed to the door, kicking it wide open. "Hollis, push the incubator." "Tessa, stick close to Hollis." Kaiser rears security. We burst into the corridor. The fire alarm was wailing throughout the building. Red emergency lights spun, dyeing the space blood red. Other nurses and doctors began running out of rooms, shouting, pushing gurneys. Chaos. I looked back into Ian's room. The fire was licking at the ceiling. Dr. Keene was still standing there, coughing, clutching her chest. "Do you want to die?" I lunged in, grabbed her arm, and dragged her out. "Move your feet." She stumbled after us, eyes wide with terror. She was no longer the authoritative director. She was a liability. "This floor is engulfed in smoke." I assessed the situation. "No elevators. Stairs. West fire escape." I led the way. "Clear the way. Clear the way. NICU evacuation." Hollis pushed Ian's incubator for dear life. Tessa ran and filmed the chaotic scene behind her, where Dr. Keene was trying to shield her face from the camera. "Stay low," I yelled as the smoke rolled lower. "Bend down." Kaiser ran close to the incubator. He wasn't barking anymore. He was intensely focused, using his body to nudge small obstacles out of the incubator's path. Occasionally, he would turn back, nudging Tessa's leg with his nose to ensure she was keeping up. We reached the stairwell door. A crowd had bottlenecked. Panic was starting to spread. "Calm down," I roared, using the full capacity of my lungs. "Single file. Right side move. Left side clear for rescue teams coming up. Now." The authority in my voice had an immediate effect. People parted to the sides. I opened the door, holding it securely for Hollis to push the incubator through. "Go down. I'll take the rear." We dashed down the stairs. Loud footsteps. Children crying. Hacking coughs. Ian lay in the incubator, still asleep due to the sedative, oblivious to being on the border between life and death. Hollis continuously checked the oxygen pressure gauge. 10 minutes of oxygen left, she reported. "Enough to get out," I replied. When we reached the first floor, the heat had lessened, but smoke still pervaded everywhere. The main fire exit door was visible ahead. I shoved the crash bar hard. Night air rushed in. Fresh air. We sprinted onto the parking lot. Fire trucks had arrived, their red and blue lights flashing repeatedly. Firefighters were deploying hoses, running past us into the building. "Safe zone. Assemble at the south lawn," I commanded. Hollis pushed the incubator to the assembly area. She collapsed, panting, but her hands still gripped the side of the incubator. Tessa hugged her son through the glass, sobbing uncontrollably. I stood back, taking a deep breath. My lungs burned from the smoke. I looked at Kaiser. His coat was smudged with soot, but he still stood there, for paws steady, eyes scanning the surroundings. "Well done, partner." I patted his flank. Just then, a loud explosion rocked the fourth floor. Window glass shattered, raining down onto the ground. The automatic sprinkler system activated. Water poured down from every corner of the building. If we had been 1 minute slower, Ian would have been trapped in that flood of fire and water. Dr. Keene stood not far away, soaking wet from the sprinkler system, trembling and pale. She looked up at the smoking fourth floor, then at us. I walked toward her. Tessa was still holding her phone, the camera pointed directly at the director. "Dr. Keene," I said, my voice cold. "You said the system was well-maintained. You said my dog was a hazard." She didn't answer, her gaze evasive. "I hope you have a good lawyer," I continued. "Because tonight, Kaiser didn't just save one life. He exposed you." Hollis waved me over. "Owen, come here quick." I ran back to the incubator. Hollis was holding a stack of files she had pulled from her scrub pocket. In the chaos, I managed to grab a sample of the formula from the cart and Ian's medical file. She whispered, her eyes shining with determination. "I've suspected this formula for a long time. Now we'll have proof." And I pulled out my phone, managed to snap a picture of the serial number on the burn electrical panel. "I'll have someone check its maintenance history." We stood there, amidst the sirens and the chaos of an evacuating hospital. We were dirty, tired, but we held the strongest weapon, the truth. Mission accomplished. Now, moving to the next phase. Part 3. Exposing the truth and justice we assembled at the City Children's Hospital. The atmosphere here was completely different from St. Michael's. It was clean, both literally and figuratively. Doctors and nurses moved quickly, focusing on patients, instead of scouting for donors. Ian was admitted to a positive pressure isolation room. His vital signs were still weak, but stable. Tessa sat beside him, her hands still shaking, but her eyes had regained focus. She was a mother, and tonight she had fought like a soldier. I stood guard at the door. Old habits. Kaiser lay at my feet, his head resting on his front paws, his amber eyes never leaving the entrance. He was still in work mode. The door opened. Hollis walked in. She carried a thick folder, her face pale, but her eyes blazing. "I have the independent test results," Hollis said, her voice sharp. She placed a folder on the table. We were right. Kaiser was right. I picked up the first paper. Numbers danced before my eyes, but the highlighted conclusion was crystal clear. Heavy metal contamination and protein structural change, Hollis quickly explained. The Langley Foundation formula. It's not just substandard milk. It's poison. Why? Tessa asked. Her voice choked. Why would they do that to children? Profit. I answered for Hollis. They cut corners in the production process. They skipped safety checks. And St. Michael's was complicit. More than that. Hollis flipped to another page. I compared Ian's health chart. His respiratory distress and septicemia began worsening exactly 2 weeks after St. Michael's switched exclusively to this formula. Kaiser smelled the altered chemicals in that batch. That's why he barked at the card. We have evidence of the weapon, I said, folding the file. Now we need evidence of the systemic negligence. My phone vibrated. Mike, a maintenance worker at St. Michael's. I got his number during the evacuation. He was a good man, trapped in a bad system. Meet me in the basement parking lot of the Children's Hospital, the message read. I have what you need. I'm going to get more ammunition, I told the 2 women. Stay here. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone who isn't staff at this hospital. I went down to the parking garage. Darkness and the smell of gasoline. Mike stood in the shadows, tightly clutching an old cardboard box. He looked around nervously, sweat glistening on his forehead. They're deleting the data, Mike said quickly when he saw me. Dr. Keene ordered the maintenance server to be formatted right after the firefighters left. What did you get? Mike handed me the box. Inside were handwritten, maintenance logbooks and printed emails. These are the hard copies, Mike said, his voice trembling. The maintenance team's logbooks. I hid them. Look at the dates. I turned on my tactical flashlight. The pages clearly showed hastily written entries. May 12th. Report of electrical panel in room 402 overheating. Burning smell. Emergency replacement recommended. Director's note, Dr. Keene denied. Budget reserved for Langley event. Continue monitoring. June 20th. Formula cold storage unit's thermostat failed. Temperature fluctuating widely. Risk of food spoilage. Director's note. Received. Temporary repair made. Do not report to the board. 6 reports. 6 denials. Dr. Keene knew that electrical panel was a ticking time bomb. She knew the formula storage was compromised, but she chose to ignore it to save face with the donor. You did the right thing, Mike. I placed a hand on his shoulder. Go home. Turn off your phone. Stay safe. I returned to the hospital room. Tessa was on the phone, her face white. They're coming, Tessa stammered. Child Protective Services, CPS, and the hospital's lawyer. What do they want? They say I endanger my son. They say I caused the fire for attention. They want to take custody of Ian immediately. Anger surged within me, cold and sharp. This was a preemptive strike tactic. They wanted to silence the witness before the truth came out. They won't take anyone, I said. Prepare yourselves. We're going to welcome them. 15 minutes later, 2 CPS workers and a lawyer in an expensive suit showed up. They were accompanied by a security guard from his hospital. Ms. Whitaker, the lawyer said, condescendingly, we have a temporary order to remove baby Ian from your care. You're reckless. Actions at St. Michael's have. I stepped out, blocking Tessa. I'm 6'3", 200 pounds, and I wasn't smiling. Kaiser stood next to me, baring his fangs slightly, forming a living wall. Who is this? The lawyer frowned. Owen Rohr, I replied curtly. And this is Kaiser, the key witness. Step aside, Mr. Rohr. This is a legal matter. Wrong, I said. This is a crime scene. And you're suspects. I threw Mike's file onto the table. The sound of paper hitting the surface was sharp and dry. That is the original St. Michael's maintenance log, I said, looking straight into the eyes of the CPS worker. It proves Dr. Keene knew about the fire risk 3 months ago and refused to repair it. She put Ian into that fire trap, not Tessa. I pointed to the second file. And those are the independent test results. Langley Foundation formula contains toxins due to improper storage. St. Michael's knew that, but still forced patients to use it. The lawyer's face changed color. He grabbed the file, flipping through a few pages quickly. His hands started shaking. These are internal documents. Where did you get them? It doesn't matter. I cut him off. What matters is that I sent copies to the police chief, the Department of Health, and the city's 3 largest newspapers 10 minutes ago. If you dare touch a hair on Ian or Tessa, tomorrow morning you'll be on the front page with the headline accessory to a crime. The room fell silent. The 2 CPS workers looked at each other, then at the lawyer. They took a step back. You need to verify this information, one said weakly. Feel free. I crossed my arms. But Ian is not going anywhere. This is the final checkpoint. They left faster than they came. The initial attack was repelled, but I knew the decisive battle would take place tomorrow morning, at the emergency meeting of the St. Michael's Hospital Board of Directors. The next morning, 9 o'clock, the Board of Directors meeting room. The space was luxurious, the air conditioning quietly humming. Powerful men and women sat around the polished mahogany table. Dr. Keene sat at the head of the table, trying to maintain composure, but her hands were tightly clasped. The representative from the Langley Foundation was also present, his face sour. Tessa, and Hollis walked in. Kaiser was by my side, head held high. I had put on his service vest with the insignia. Today, he was not a pet. He was an officer. Mr. Rohr, the board chairman spoke up. We'll allow you 5 minutes to speak. Please be brief. I don't need 5 minutes, I said, my voice echoing in the room. I just need the truth. I connected Tessa's phone to the large projector screen. You say Tessa caused a disturbance. You say Kaiser is a hazard. Watch this. The video played. The large screen showed the chaos in the NICU room. Kaiser's warning bark. Dr. Keene shouts. And then, the moment the electrical panel exploded, Dr. Keene stood frozen in terror, while Hollis and I rushed to save the baby. The video shifted. Kaiser barking frantically at the formula card. Stop, I ordered. The image of Kaiser barking at the formula batch froze on the screen. Kaiser is a level 1 service dog, I said, sweeping my gaze across every face in the room. He has military certification for detecting explosives and fire hazards. When he barked at that cart, he wasn't begging for food. He was reporting, toxin detected. Hollis stepped up, placing the test results on the table in front of the chairman. Ian was poisoned with heavy metals from spoiled formula. Other pediatric patients had similar symptoms but were misdiagnosed. This is the medical evidence. I tossed Mike's logbook onto the center of the table, and this is the evidence of intentional negligence. 6 reports of failure. 6 refusals to repair. Dr. Keene's signature. Dr. Keene jumped up. That's slander. That file is fake. Silence, the chairman roared. He picked up the logbook, flipping through the pages. His face turned bright red. He turned to the Langley Foundation representative. Did you know about the spoiled formula in the broken cold storage? The Langley representative was sweating profusely. We heard reports of a minor technical glitch. A minor technical glitch. Tessa spoke up. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried the power of a mother. My son almost died because of that minor glitch. You traded his life for profit. The chairman closed the logbook. The sharp sound was like a judge's gavel. Enough. He turned to Dr. Keene. Mallory Keene, you are terminated. Effective immediately. Security will escort you off the premises. Our legal counsel will work with you regarding criminal charges. But I did it for the hospital. Keene stammered. You did it for your position, I said coldly. 2 security guards entered. Dr. Keene completely collapsed. She was let out, walking past Kaiser. The dog didn't bark. He just looked at her with cold, disdainful eyes. The enemy was neutralized. As for the Langley Foundation, the chairman continued, his voice firm. The contract is canceled. We will sue you for providing toxic food, and we will make everything public. The Langley representative hurriedly gathered his belongings and fled. The board chairman stood up, walking toward Tessa. Ms. Whitaker, I apologize on behalf of the hospital. We were wrong. We will cover all of Ian's medical expenses and compensate for all losses. He looked down at Kaiser. And this dog, he did the job we failed to do. He protected the patient. 2 weeks later, St. Michael's Hospital had changed. A new board was appointed. Safety procedures were tightened. No more flashy events, only professional work. Ian was home. He had gained weight, his cheeks rosy again. No more breathing tubes. No more 4 lines. Breast milk and safe formula had revived him. I drove Tessa and Ian to the park. Kaiser sat in the back seat, his head out the window, enjoying the breeze. We sat on a bench, watching Ian sleep peacefully in his stroller. Kaiser lay prone beside the wheels, his ears still pricked, monitoring every movement around us. You know, Tessa said, looking at me, I used to think miracles came from angels with wings. She pointed to Kaiser. But sometimes, a miracle has 4 paws and a wet nose. I smiled. For the first time in years, I felt a genuine sense of relief.